welcome to the first ever Daniel Energy Partners podcast. And today we are here. I'm Sean Mitchell. I'm a managing partner at Daniel Energy Partners, and we are live from the Flecha Azul Tequila podcast studio. Thanks to our friend Josh Lowry is letting us record our first ever Daniel Energy Partners podcast. So today, I think what I really want to do is go around the room and introduce my partners and friends in the industry. A lot of us have worked together a long time, but I'm going to start with you, John, because you're the managing partner and founder of Daniel Energy Partners. And why don't you just tell all of us about your background and kind of where you've been in this journey over the last 12 months, starting Daniel Energy Partners, and give us a little color prior to Daniel Energy Partners.
Sure. So going back in time, out of undergrad, first job was in commercial banking. I did that for 4 years. Had a desire to be an investment banker, so I went back to grad school, and had just finished my first semester at Chapel Hill, getting my MBA, and I got called out of school to go. Got an opportunity to go join a small little well service company called Key Energy Services. So I dropped out of Chapel Hill after my first semester and joined Key. Spent 8 years there. The first 4 years were in the other energy capital of the world, East Brunswick, New Jersey, which is where Key was headquartered when I was there.
That's where it should be.
And then I came down to Midland. I did a 1-year tour of duty in 2004, and then to Houston in 2005. At Key, I handled the investor relations department, so I spent a lot of time with the sell-side analysts that covered the stock, as well as the investors that owned the stock or traded the stock, and realized towards the end of my time at Key that analysts on the sell side, at least back in the good old days, made pretty good money. And I figured half the people never called me at Key, and I was like, well, if no one calls me, I don't know what they're doing. Maybe I should go do that job. So I knew the folks at Simmons pretty well, and more so on the banking side, and reached out, and they were kind enough to interview me. And then I guess it was in early 2008, April 1st, 2008, I left Key, joined Simmons, proceeded to work there for 12 years, covering the oil service sector, primarily anything that was in U.S. onshore businesses that Key participated in largely. Enjoyed that quite a bit, but after 12 years and being 47 years old, I was ready to go try to be my own boss, and it was time to go do something. And so I left about a year ago and started Daniel Energy Partners, and been running pretty hard the last 15 months or 14 months, however long it's been. It feels like forever. Just trying to grow a business from scratch and starting up in a downturn. So.
Got it. What do you think has been the most challenging thing over the last 15 months? I know you're on the road a lot. I mean, Bill and I are in the office, and you're out driving around, whether you're sliding across the ice in the Bakken or whether you're actually out cooking barbecue in Midland. You're on the road quite a bit, but tell us, what has been the most challenging thing over the last 15 months?
I think the hardest part for me is actually asking people for money. I never had to do that in anywhere else I worked, and you build up relationships with people, strong relationships, and I think they like what we do from a research perspective. I hope they do. But to go to them and try to have them pay you, particularly when their businesses are collapsing, as they were. I launched this thing on April 2nd, and I think within a couple weeks, oil prices went negative. So the mood to spend more money, particularly research, which is a discretionary item, wasn't really there. And it's just hard to ask for money. And then when you have a research product, it's hard to price the product. Like, what's the value? Right. And I honestly don't know if I even know what that is today, frankly. But that's been the hard part too, is how do you establish value for a product?
Let me tell you, folks, it's worth a lot.
Well, we like to think so. We think it's, and so that was hard. And the travel doesn't really bother me that much. I enjoy it. I like Dairy Queen and I like barbecue, and I don't mind driving. And so, I know where most of the good places are in Texas, and my kids are off in college now. In fact, my son will be interning for Flecha Azul, so thank you, Aaron Marquez, for that. So I think my wife's more than happy for me to travel.
What's your favorite blizzard?
I get the Oreo Blizzard, medium Oreo Blizzard, and a Pepsi every time, and that's generally my lunch or afternoon snack is Blizzards and Coke, Pepsi.
Well, that's a great overview.
Yeah, so that's the background.
Sitting next to John Daniel is a good friend of mine and John's. His name is Bob Stanton. He joined our team about a week ago. And Bob, obviously John and I know you from Simmons, but give the listeners out there a little background where you've been over the last 30 years and kind of your history and our history together at Simmons. You can obviously dive in and tell great stories about John and I, I'm sure, but why don't you give us a little bit of background on where you've been?
Well, Sean and I have been friends since high school. We both went to high school here in Houston and continued our friendship at the University of Texas. After we both had detours at other schools. I went to New York for a couple of years and learned about the financial industry. Worked for Kidder Peabody and Payne Weber, so I saw a business collapse in front of my face. And then I kind of realized I needed to go back to business school as well, so I ended up coming back to Houston, going to Rice Business School, the Jones School here in Houston. And when I graduated from there, I still wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And I went to a little company called First Data Corporation, and that lasted for about 6 months before they were sold. And somehow I ended up at Simmons and Company. Started out on their trading desk for about 3 weeks, and then ended up in the institutional sales group with Mike Frazier, and became a great 13 years. Where I worked, where you came on a year later, and John came on, and when did you come in? 08? 08. And so in 2013, the nice run had ended. So I left and went to U.S. Capital for a little while, and then I went to go work with our good friend Robert Kessler for a year or so. And then I realized, I'm probably going to check out the financial advisory business. So I went to work for Merrill Lynch with some friends of ours for a couple years. And after talking to Sean, we went to Mexico together during COVID, which was nice.
You're not supposed to tell people that.
And anyway, and John and I talked as he was leaving Simmons, and everything just kind of came full circle, and it worked out great that I started 2 weeks ago, and I've been trying to catch up on the last 5 years, what's been going on in the energy business for the last 5 years.
Well, I can tell you, it won't take long for Bobby to catch up, and just kind of a sidebar on our friendship and the history here. I can remember in 2001 when I called Bobby, and I was working at Scotia Capital at the time. I was doing long hours, doing investment banking here in Houston, and had just had our second kid. And Bobby called me one day and said, "Hey, how you doing?" I said, "I'm not very good. I'm kind of miserable at work. I'm looking to make a change." He said, "Why don't you come talk to us over at Simmons?" And I was like, "Wow, Simmons has all the guys that went to Harvard and Wharton, a bunch of smart guys. I probably don't belong there." And anyway, he said, "Why don't you come talk to us?" And 2 days later, I had lunch with Mike Frazier. 2 weeks later, they gave me a job offer, and I started in August. And it was by far the best kind of 13 years. Bob and I had a lot of fun together, and we had a good team. And I think what I would tell you, Bobby can attest to this, but I think the bar is set pretty high at Simmons, even for salespeople. And so I was super excited when Bobby and I were talking down in Mexico, and I kind of ran the idea by him, and he kind of sounded like he was in a similar spot to where I was back in 2001. He didn't look like he was having a whole lot of fun in his current role. And so I think for us, it was kind of nice for me to be able to say, "Hey, why don't you come join us? I mean, we're doing something different. It's really not the same job that we used to do at Simmons, because we're not just selling to the buy side, we're selling to companies, and we're hosting some really great events." So we're glad to have you. It's fun to be back together, and obviously getting some of our teammates back together is a lot of fun. And then I'm going to move over next to Bill Austin. Bill, you've been with John.
Employee number
started,
2.
Yeah, employee number 2 at Daniel Energy Partners, and you came on in June.
Yeah, I guess end of May, June last year, so it's almost exactly been a year at this point.
Cool.
John started in April, and then we had been talking leading up to that, and he's like, I started this thing, oil's negative, the world was collapsing, or so it seemed at that point. COVID was raging, and everyone's kind of at home. We're talking on the phone, and somehow John convinced me to join him. I don't know. Looking back on it, I was like, well, I don't know how that even happened. But yeah, so I started off in a roundabout way, also in financial services. I was an investment banker right out of college. I did that in New York, and so I stayed up in New York for about 10 years. Junior analyst, associate, kind of doing a little bit of everything. But in 2009, I came and essentially followed John at Key. Took over a part of his old job, because when John had left, he left some holes at Key, and Key.
I forgot to do a lot.
Yeah. So I kind of took over a bunch of his old jobs, and one of the first calls I made when I started there was to John saying, "Hey, I could use some help here. I don't really know what I'm doing." And John was kind enough to help me out, know who to talk to within the company and kind of outside of the company as well. And that's really that was the first time I had met John. And we had stayed in touch ever since. I moved, after that point, to a bunch of different oilfield service companies. So I've seen some good, some bad, and some ugly throughout the last now about 11 years in the oilfield service industry. But I've been more focused on the M&A kind of finance side in my career. So I've seen the services, the capital equipment side. After I left Key, I went and joined Cameron. And saw a great organization that was eventually bought by Schlumberger, but just awesome people, and I really enjoyed immensely working there. So I've had my fair share of up and downs, but in the last year it's been awesome. We've been able to, again, because we were such a small group, it was just two of us really. We knew Sean, and we had plans, but we really didn't know what they were going to be like.
Right. And
John and I would sit not here in the Fletcher Azul studio, but in the conference room here at either ends, because we weren't allowed to be within 6 feet of each other.
Right.
Trying to figure out what the heck we wanted this to be.
I don't believe you followed them.
Yeah, and that's been the interesting thing. That's what's the most fun, frankly, is it has been a whiteboard.
Yep.
Right, and you have being flexible enough to pivot when you realize there's a need to pivot, and we've done that in this past year.
Well, let's talk about the pivot, because I think it's important on kind of who are we at Daniel Energy Partners? What do we stand for? What are we going to do
I don't think
for
you
the next
introduced
5
yourself
years?
Yet, though.
Huh?
I don't think you really introduced yourself yet, though.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I was going to kick it over to you, Sean. So now that we've done everybody else, Sean, why don't you tell us a little bit more?
Easy.
I was going to try to sneak past that one. So Sean Mitchell grew up in Houston. As Bob said, we went to high school around the corner from each other. We both took a detour before we ended up at Texas together. We were good friends at Texas and stayed good friends after college. I went to Scotia Capital to do kind of energy lending, corporate lending. We did a lot of borrowing-based type deals, revolvers for E&P companies, but also some service deals. And we were never really the lead bank. Scotia was a great participating bank in revolving credit facilities, so kind of cut my teeth on credit deals, just kind of understanding the companies that I was looking at, their ability to repay bank debt, essentially, right? And at the time, it seemed like it was really intense modeling, but at the end of the day, really wasn't that tough. But, it was a good way to learn the industry. It was a good way to get into the 10Ks and the 10Qs on a regular basis and learn a little bit about the banking products. And then made a transition over to kind of the M&A side. We had a group out of Calgary. Scotia Capital was not a big, investment bank in the States at the time. We really just had a lending group, but the guys in Calgary really, back in the day when Calpine and Dynegy and some of these kind of power companies were really looking to actually buy natural gas assets, there was a lot of cross-border M&A going on at that time. And so the guys in Calgary basically said, hey, we need you guys in Houston to step up and kind of try to build a team of investment bankers. Well, I wasn't the lead guy. I was just one of the junior guys that was asked to be on the team. And it was great experience, but it was long hours. And I really learned a lot during that time period. And then like I said, I was on the phone with Bob Stanton, a good friend, and he just said, "Hey, how you doing?" I said, "Not great. You know, would really like to make a move or make a change here." And he said, "Come talk to us." And you know, the rest was history. I mean, I spent almost 20 years at Simmons. Again, I would say it was one of the greatest firms to work for. It was private. We were small. We had a ton of fun. There was a lot of smart people working together. And I think that's what we're trying to build here at Daniel Energy. I mean, that's at least my vision of where I want to go with this firm is we're small today.
As a quick aside, one hungover Saturday morning, Sean Mitchell and I were walking through a mall, and we decided to buy a cat. We each bought a cat, a kitten. You remember that?
In college.
In college. I
That
think
was not
Sean
one of
kept his for
Yeah.
3 days. I kept mine for a week before I put an ad in the paper.
Yeah, no, I don't know why we bought those cats.
For
but
a
we did
dog
buy.
person, it was not smart.
Yeah,
No,
I guess we
that
just lost our sponsorship from Pisa.
Yeah.
or PETA,
Yeah,
whatever it is.
Peter's not. Well, no, we gave him to a nice family.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, no, I mean, cats and all, we at Daniel Energy Partners, I think, are on a mission here. We're a small firm today. We're a member of 5 people. I'll introduce Mary Helen, even though she's not here. She's a great asset to our team. Mary Helen Norman, she's from Austin, Texas. She went to Texas as well. Bobby and I both knew her in college. I actually knew her in junior high and high school as well. But we're a small team today, but I think our agenda, as I love hearing this from John, is we're going to have fun. We're going to have a ton of fun. And we're supporting an industry that is, I think, not dying, but there's a lot of people leaving the industry that are on our side of the business, on the sell side. And I think that's going to create an opportunity for us. And I would love to hear kind of your thoughts, John, as the leader and founder of Daniel Energy Partners. Just talk to us a little bit about your kind of research process and how you think about the world in terms of where is Daniel Energy Partners in 5 years, in your opinion?
Okay. Well, I guess I'll start on just the turmoil within our own sector as it relates to what we know is the sell side, right? That's when I was leaving Simmons, I sort of saw investor interest in energy, particularly oil service, falling because there had been years of underperformance. We all know a lot of good friends and clients were blown up at the hedge fund community, lost their jobs, so assets under management were coming down, right?
Yep.
And so investors really didn't want to hear about any small or mid-cap service names. And so I was getting no inbound phone calls. It was very lonely, right? I could go out in the field, write a great field recap note, and no one really cared at the time. And so I was getting sort of, I don't want to say burned out. I guess I was a little bit burned out, but ready to do something different. And I didn't, not that the whole sell side is having an issue, but just within our community, oil service, we were having challenges. And I think we've seen that play out. I'm not going to name names now, but there's several really good people that left the analyst role and went to the banking side. Other really good people we know that left the analyst side and went to take corporate development roles within service companies. Yeah. And so the really smart people, a lot of them
experienced,
were leaving. And so what's happened is, and then you've seen other groups where the people have left and the firm just walks away completely from covering the oil service sector. And then those companies that are trying to continue at it, again, these are friends of ours, they've had to reduce coverage. They just don't have the resources. You can't staff up a team with 5 or 6 people like you could in the old days and cover 40, 50 names.
Yeah, and to put it in perspective, I think energy now as a percent of the S&P 500 is what, 2%?
It's in that vicinity.
It's a little over 2%.
Between 2 and 3.
And it was at its peak, what, 8?
Right.
9?
No, back in the, it was 14%.
14? Did it get up that high? I
back,
can't, it seems unbelievable now.
It was certainly almost in the mid double digits.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the business model
Crazy.
for our side, I think, had to change. And that was, sort of one of the things that I was proposing back, in late 19, early 2020. But the way we're trying to change it is, we've got a research product that, the buy side is interested in. It's growing slowly, but it's growing. But the broader industry likes the approach that we're taking because, as an example, during 2020, during the COVID crisis, a lot of people were not traveling, right? So, you were relying on Zoom calls and earnings conference calls as kind of the basis of your research. And that's important. We all listen to those
Sean
calls.
and I went to Cabo.
Yeah.
But when I started on April 2nd, I was the only employee, and I like to say I deemed myself an essential employee. So therefore, I was willing to travel because I had to feed a family, right? And so I was like, well, if no one else is going to go out in the field, then I'm going to be the guy that goes and do that. And I think I just got back from Midland last week. That was my 17th Midland tour in the last 15 months. And as I've said to other people, I did another podcast recently, great guy hosted it, but 3 tours to the Bakken in the last 12 months, 4 to Oklahoma, 4 to East Texas. I mean, lots of trips back and forth to Fort Worth for meetings. So we're always on the road. And like I said earlier, I really enjoy that. This is, at the end of the day, this is a people business, right? And so therefore, I don't want to just be the guy that calls a company and says, hey, where's your pricing today? What's your rig count? That gets old.
What about their SG&A? That's
well, and I'm not, and we don't model the companies. I don't want to be one of the, we don't want to do that. And so it's like, well, but so you got to change the model. It's more than, I don't want to just write research on stocks, because there's really not a big audience for people that want to read the research on the stocks, at least the ones that we know well today.
Right.
Again, I'm small subset names, but what can you do to sort of lift up the industry in terms of the networking events, which has really become a big deal with us,
Right.
and we can go into that later. But but even during the COVID crisis, maybe it's just because we're a bunch of dumb Texans, but people were more than willing to go out and go to receptions and hit the ball, golf outings.
Yep.
We did a lot of that. And then we took the risk. We said, let's just pull this event off at Minute Maid Park. And so,
well, and remember, John, like again, last summer, no one's doing meetings. The oil field, again, people business, right? They actually are the ones who are like, no, we don't need to do a Zoom call. We can stand 6 feet apart. We can be outside, whatever. Well,
right.
Our businesses still need to run, right? Like people still need to be out in the field doing things. And if you're willing to come out there and talk to us, we're willing to talk to you. And in a big way, right? Like that was part of not an aha moment, but the industry wanted us to be talking to them because the other guys, in New York or wherever,
it was harder for them to do. They couldn't. And we saw that too, where a lot of companies had, legit policies on no travel. That's fine.
Sure.
I'm not here to
Right.
make fun of anybody. But we don't have any policies at our shop. We just do what we want, and we're gonna have fun.
Mary Helen has strict policies.
But and so that's why I was like, well, we're going to go out. And I took the approach that if field people were allowed to go work and be on the rig, then I could go talk to them at the yard level. Again, that's just my own decree. One of the things that people ask is, well, how does your business model work? And like we've tried to allude, this has been a whiteboard. We've done some pivoting, but simplistically, we're a subscription model. And there are certain people that they just really want the research note, and that's it. They don't want to be bothered, or they don't really care to go to the big networking events, and that's fine. Then we've got people who want to be at the very top, and they want to be at every event. They want investor access. They want top spots at conferences, trade shows. They want to be treated well. We'd like to think we treat everyone well, but they get sort of special attention, and it's an annual subscription rate, and people can pay quarterly. We've got some that pay semi-annually. We've got some that pay lump sum. We really like that, but it's a subscription model. And we've got different sort of, I don't want to say formal consulting services, but let's say you're an E&P company. What they will do is they'll reach out to us proactively a lot of times and talk about the trends in the oil service market. They might come on one of the tours we're doing. They'll ask for just general industry knowledge. The service companies, they want to know sort of market color as well, but they also want to meet more people, as do the capital equipment providers. So, the higher level you are, the more likely you're going to get invites to some of our top tier events. And I think the other thing that we have to point out on this is that the reason we limit it is not because we're jerks. It's because some places you can't have but so many people in a room.
Right.
Okay. And so, for instance, the event that we're doing for clients up in Whistling Straits, that's a pretty high-end event. It's why I didn't get invited. And we're limited to like 16 people because of the COVID rules in Wisconsin. Maybe it's 18. I don't even know.
Yeah.
Telluride, we're limited to, I think, 70 in the room.
Yep.
And so, whereas Minute Maid Park, well, we could have as many as we wanted, frankly. And so that's why we had a couple, we invited about 2,000, but we had maybe 850 that showed that day. So it just depends on each event. And some people want to just go to the big events, and others want to go to the more intimate events. And so that's the model.
How do investors, if they want to get on our distribution list, what's the best protocol there in terms of getting folks that maybe don't know us?
Yeah, so I guess step back. If you're a company and you want to subscribe, you can reach out to Bill or myself, or you guys. I don't care who takes the call. If you're an investor and you're interested, I'd say talk to you or talk to Bob about signing up. And look, we will do what we have to do to work with people. If somebody wants to just have an a la carte menu, hey, I just want to go to Glen Eagles, or I just want to go to Thrive, fine, we'll work with you. If you say you want to get access to all the notes, and we don't model companies, but we have a couple models like our rig count forecast or whatever, but they can have that level of access. It's kind of flexible.
And so one of the things we used to do at Simmons quite a bit that was super popular at one point in time was we would take investors out into the field. Are you still willing to do that?
If I like them, we are. If I don't, I won't. Because look, I'd also want to make sure that when you take, we're not out there to try to traffic in material non-public information. That is not what we're doing.
Right.
Okay? So I don't want some smart-ass hedge fund guy coming down and trying to ask questions about, what are you going to do for the quarter?
Just to be clear, as long as you're not a smartass.
Right.
Hedge funds are fine.
But look, you see a different level of maturity in people as they progress in the industry.
That's fair.
Okay? And so maybe that was inappropriate. But people who are sort of been doing it for a long time are respectful to the companies. They know where they shouldn't go in terms of the Q&A.
Right.
And what I'm trying to do is bring someone down to learn about the business.
Right.
Not, is Halliburton going to beat the quarter? I don't care.
Well, and I think, frankly,
I hope they always beat the quarter.
I think it actually brings up something that when you think about who we are from the research side and how we can help institutional investors and how, you and I the three of us had a conversation with Jeff Miller at Halliburton. I mean, I'll just say it. Like we're not going to cover your company, but what we can do is we can talk to investors intelligently about your strategy and kind of what you're doing that's differentiated relative to your peers. And I think to us, knowing Jeff Miller, knowing the Halliburton team, or knowing the Baker team, or knowing the Schlumberger, like knowing these people really well, I think sells well to the investment community in a sense that these guys spend a lot of time outside of work with some of the folks in the industry, so they kind of understand who they are as people, and they have a certain amount of trust for those people. Because I think one of the big things for me in this industry is I think when people trust you and they know that you're not just calling to try to pick the quarter or traffic and material non-public information, I think they value that because they know that you're someone they can trust. Well, and I think you've always been that person.
And look, I don't want to deal with annoying people. And so the way I look at it is I didn't start this firm because I want to go have the biggest house in River Oaks. I started this firm to be free, to do whatever the hell I want when I want to do it and eat as much Dairy Queen or barbecue as I like. And so I'm happy to not take certain clients. It's okay, right? It is okay. I'd rather not deal with the stress. I'd rather have people that are just good folks that we want to be with, right? That's my vision. I don't know if you share that, but that's my vision, and that's how I'm going to try to run it.
I want to finish and kind of close the loop on your research process, because I've heard you talk about yourself as an investigative reporter.
Right.
I've heard you talk about trust. But verify.
Right.
I do think of your research. I know you downplay it, but I think your research is so unique and different from what most people on Wall Street are doing, even in other sectors where they can go out in the field and talk to folks. And so,
well, 10 years ago when he started doing that pressure pumping stuff, nobody else was doing that, counting the capacity.
There's a couple, but I guess so. I want to come back. Like what we would do, when you go out in the field. And I always use this example, but I will never call this individual out. But there was a really bad CEO who used to talk about how his company had great equipment. And I would like to go drive by their yards.
Right.
And I could gently trespass because I could go right up to the fence. I wouldn't go on the property.
Right.
But it was a see-through fence. And you could take photos. And I would love to take photos of this person's equipment because on every power end it would say broken, busted engine, or there'd be missing component parts. And maybe that it was a liberal definition of what's good equipment and bad equipment, but it was just interesting to see. You had to see it to believe it. And then if you go through factory tours, you can talk to the people that are rebuilding equipment.
Yep.
Who's doing what? Who's not doing what? Or if you're doing a rebuild, is it a true rebuild, or is it a shave and a haircut where you fix one broken piece and then you paint it? And that's what I enjoy doing. And then, and we treat everything off the record. We don't name the names. And these, we're not trying to throw anyone under the bus. We're just trying to put the mosaic picture together And that's why we want to talk to the E&P companies. We want to talk to the capital equipment providers. We want to talk to the oil service companies. We then want to talk to the financial service providers and what's kind of really going on. And we don't, as you know, I mean, I have no idea what OPEC is going to do next month, next year.
I do.
I don't know when, auto demand is going to be fully recovered. That's not what we traffic in or what I traffic in. I'm not smart enough to do that. But I know that I can get in my truck, and I know that I can drive to El Reno, and I know that I can talk to the people on the ground and hear what's going on in real time. And I think there's a value to people who are in clients in London, in Norway, and L.A.
In New York and Boston.
Yeah, those two issues that just they don't have the time.
Right.
And they don't need, frankly, it's not worth their time to go out for 5 days.
No way.
Yeah.
We can do that, and then we can give them the 20-minute download of what we think's going on.
Well, and I think what's so valuable, John, and again, I think you downplay the research side a little bit, and I think it's fantastic because I'm the one who actually called these institutional clients for 20 years, and when you realize that the model on Halliburton or the model on ConocoPhillips is not that helpful to them, they can get a model just about anywhere these days. And so someone who's actually going out in the field and talking to people in the field, doing something differentiated is really valuable. And I think what you realize as a guy talking to these folks on the phone all the time is that they know that the value in talking to you, being in Texas and on the ground and your analyst is out in the field, they know that no one else is doing what you're doing and no one else has kind of the color that you're going to bring to them. And that's valuable.
Nor the established relationships that he's made over the last 20 years.
It's hard to replicate relationships. I'll concede that. There are people. I mean, we have really good competitors, by the way. I mean, we have a few. I'm good friends. You know this. I love Luke Lemoyne. I think George O'Leary does a great job. These are good people. Yep. I mean, good analysts and good people. But there's a large swath of analysts that don't really do the work.
Right.
Okay, and which is helpful to us because it makes our job easier. But what's also what the thing when we pivoted our business, and I'll let Bill jump in here too, is what we realized is that through the networking events, that companies, they benefit from that. If we can host a dinner and well service company can sit next to E&P company and they can help build a relationship and that helps well service company out, then that's good. And if right next to the well service company we can have a capital equipment provider sitting next to him or her, then they might benefit. And so that's we started small, and then it's grown, and it's making sure that you get decision makers at these events.
Yep.
And so the networking was not really something we had contemplated early on. It was little things, and then we saw the value in doing that.
Yeah,
and from a research perspective, it's great because I can sit there and listen to all three of these folks talk at dinner. I'm like, oh, that's a good data point.
Right.
And that's helpful.
Well, and look, the one thing, so it was September of last year, again, John and I, we had been sitting around. We wanted to do something where everyone had been sitting inside, and John said, let's get the smoker out and let's go to Midland. I said, okay. Outside, Aaron Marquez was nice enough to let us just set up in the
Burger Basin.
In the Basin Burger. Yeah. And our networks, we were able to bring people together again. Hey, have some barbecue, sit around.
Staying 6 feet apart, of course.
As much as you can. The E&P guys show up, the service guys show up, the whole network shows up, and the next thing you know, again, to John's point, not naming names, you've got two guys, a service provider and an E&P, that on a lower level were having an issue, right? And those two guys were able to talk about the issue, get it resolved, and kind of come out better on the other side for both of them. And the service provider came up to John and I afterward and said, all right, I need to subscribe. Like, I'm already a subscriber. We love you guys, but we're ready to go up to the next level.
Right.
And that was kind of the light bulb where we said, these networking things actually matter.
Right. Yeah. And so we also wanted to change it up a little bit too.
Yeah.
Which prompted the Minute Maid Park conference. And then it's also, look, I consider these folks friends, right? I do. And I like to cook, as you know. And so, again, I don't want to be that guy, and I don't want any of us to be the people that are just bugging somebody like, hey, tell me what your day rates are, or tell me, how many fleets do you have running. Like, that gets really old really fast.
Yep.
And so, we took our pit up to East Texas and cooked for a client and their employees. We took our pit to a driller's yard out in Midland and cooked for their employees and customers. We've taken the pit several places. We did one up in.
We
I don't even know
did
where
one
we
at a
were.
ranch. We were just, I say just north of Austin. It was about an hour and a half north of Austin.
It's in the middle of nowhere, but yeah, we did that, and so we enjoy doing that. And so, any clients that are listening to this podcast, if you want us to come cook for you, let us know. We'll try to do it. But that's what's fun. And so that was. And I remember when I joined Simmons, Mike Frazier, or I guess it was Matt at the time. His mantra or his statement was like, "We got to have fun." And you know. Like I said, I'm 47, 48. I don't really ever want to work for anyone else again, right? I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it, and hopefully do it right and ethically and make everyone happy. But, you know, I want to have a blast. And so that's why we're doing the networking is it's just as much about having fun as it is lifting up the industry. Right? I mean,
no, that's right.
You guys, like this, and everyone, we talked about this in the note on Sunday, everybody has a different definition of fun. The three of you all are blessed. You're going to Whistling Straits next week to golf.
Yes.
And
we're
for
not supposed
me,
to talk about that.
I'm going to Bossier City to look at a pump down company get auctioned. Everybody wins.
Okay. Well, look, the research side, I think the audience has got the picture here. Your boots on the ground.
That's what we're trying to do.
It's super important. The relationship side, I want to dig a little deeper.
Yeah.
We did a really good event, and I have to say, John, I'm gonna say this on the podcast because I don't normally admit these things, but when you and I met at Minute Maid in November, and Bill, and you said we're gonna host an event here that's going to be an expo and conference, and if you would have put the over under at 300 people, I would have taken the under, and I was wrong. You were absolutely right. We absolutely, I think, way over-delivered on this event. But talk to us a little bit more about Thrive and what that vision was for you and Bill before I came on board, because you guys had already kind of had a vision of what Thrive would look like. I don't think you had named it yet.
Right.
And then we kind of all participated in the naming of the event. But let's talk a little bit deeper on Thrive, because I think it's such a great event for the industry, and I think this is going to be an event we're going to be doing in 15 or 20 years.
I think that's right. And we've signed the contract. I think you remember, it's February 22nd to the 24th.
I think that's right.
Double check our dates. But
Sounds right.
so, you know, when you do, part of research is going out to trade shows, going out to places like OTC or NAPE or whatever it might be.
Right.
And the thing that stood out to me is, you know, really anyone could go to those events. And what happens when anyone can go to an event is sometimes you get people that are going there just to frankly solicit people that are exhibiting or going, you know, booths or whatever. A lot of, and it sounds so offensive, but I'll say it because I'm the boss. A lot of young people maybe walking around looking for jobs, whatever it might be.
That's so offensive.
But I was like, I want people, like if someone's going to have an exhibit in an event that we're doing, I want decision makers to be walking by that person's booth. And if someone's going to have an exhibit there, I don't really care about koozies or pens or free candy that gets handed out, right? It's not about a gift bag. It's about getting professional executives that can conduct business and network. And I told the people that were having the booths, I said, the whole objective is for you not to stand behind a booth, but to get out and walk around. The people we're inviting, they're not going to steal your laptop, right? And so just go have fun and meet people. And so the key was have it be the lowest cost, because some of the trade shows can be pretty expensive, right? It was invite only, so we didn't charge anyone a fee to go attend, but they had to be, you know, a client or a decision maker at a company, at a great venue. You know, being stuck in a hotel, I mean, unless you're like in Vegas, like that is unappealing to me. And so the ballpark had its own, you know, it just had its own feel to it. I mean, we let people go out and take batting practice on the field. We rented the suites, so companies, if they didn't want to go into the main conference room, they just want to hang out and have their own meetings up in the suite, they could do that.
But they could see the conference on the Jumbotron.
You could see the conference on the Jumbotron and on the TVs within the stadium. And so again, and that's the feedback. Unless people lied to me, the feedback was positive. They liked the fact that it wasn't overcrowded. It was about quality over quantity. And again, we didn't set out to make money on Thrive. We just didn't want to lose money. And that's, you know, sort of how we're approaching things as we go forward. And again, I'm not trying to knock any business models where your objective is to make your income on the conferences. That's fine. But that's just not what we were trying to do.
Right. Well, I think the other amazing thing about Thrive to me was, I know we get this a lot when we talk to investors and to folks for the first time. Hey, we started Daniel Energy Partners, or go, oh, we're not doing oil service. But we had E&P companies on panels. We had midstream companies on panels. We had large private equity guys on panels. We hit traditional energy. We hit upstream, downstream, midstream. We even hit a little renewables in an interesting way. And I think it speaks volumes to your ability, or our ability as a firm, to actually attract people outside the oil field services sector. Because I think most people think of Daniel Energy Partners out there and they go, oh, those are the guys that do the oil field tours. And they think of us as just guys that are looking at the oil field service sector. And I think when we think about our events, they're going to include a lot more than just our oil field service friends.
That's right. I mean, we're one of the things that we're planning now is the Permian Basin Barbecue Cook-Off, which will be on September 30th out in Midland. That, as an example, we'll have 54 to 60 cooking teams participating, and so that's going to be oil service and capital equipment companies, and then of course us. We intend to win. The other people, the people judging, are, for the most part, we'll have 54 judges. I would say probably 45 of them, because we're going to have a few people that we hand out, but
special guests.
There'll be special guests. Will be E&P executives, and the one thing that is, and again, we consider the E&P folks our friends, their clients. I mean, and a lot of the E&P companies reach out to us because they want to know what's going on, to hear just an independent view on trends in the oil service sector. What are we seeing on the capital equipment side? Are we seeing any new designs? I mean, I won't say who it is, but we're going to host a tour next week. We've got a basket of E&P companies coming in to look and learn a little bit about hydrogen as a fuel source for, the oil service market. And so we're excited about that. But we bring a lot of different people together, and our good friends at Upright Digital, great marketing firm, people should use them. One of the things that they talked about and have said is, as they looked at trade shows over the years, one of the challenges is you got to get the diverse crowd. You can't just have a bunch of capital equipment people at a trade show. You can't just have a bunch of oil service. You need the whole community. And we want to take good care of the operator clients of ours, and even those that aren't. We want to invite them, because I tell them this, they know how it works. They're smart people too. But if you can get the E&P executives there, then you're going to get the service executives there. And if you get the service executives there, then you're going to get the capital equipment executives there. If you get all of them, then you're going to get the financial services folks, the investors, and the broader community.
Oh, by the way, the midstream guys actually want to come too.
Yeah, the midstream too. I forgot about them. But that's, and again, you look at some of the people that participated at Thrive as an example. I mean, this is the benefit of being in Houston and Texas. I mean, one of the CEOs I went to church with, right? A lot of people, kids' baseball teams, who you go to church with, who your kids go to school with. And so these people both professionally and personally, and they want to support us. And that was the best part too, is like you call someone up who, and we had a midstream company on. I don't know shit about midstream, right? And
we're going to have to put an E.
And so I was like, I don't even know what to ask you. But and so we ended up getting Pierce Hammond from Simmons to do it, because he's smarter than us. And, but we, Enterprise Products CEO came to sit on a panel, which was great. And he's very nice, and he didn't make fun of me. And so that was good. But and we're not afraid to do that. And I want to make that a point, because we have some of our friends who are at other investment banks or whatever. They're invited to our events. They really are. Yeah. I mean,
it's totally different.
We think we're a different business model. And so we had that. We had good friends like Jim Wicklund come out and give the opening keynote. We had Marshall Adkins there. Pierce Hammond was there. Spencer Ripstein, a banker from Simmons, participated.
Pickering was there.
Dan Pickering
showed up. He did a great job. We're doing an event and Telluride at the end of June, and we've got Jim, because he's so good, he's coming back to moderate some stuff. But we've got bankers from Lazard attending. We've got attorneys from Thompson Knight. Winston Strom was a huge sponsor of Thrive. Did a great job. Eric Johnson.
Got some new Simmons E&P bankers coming.
Yeah, so we're really trying to open this up as best we can to everybody.
That was a great overview. Bill, maybe you and Bob can talk. We'll start with Bill. But maybe just talk to us kind of what you see. Obviously, you've been here. You were the second employee. You kind of see where we've been, and you kind of have a vision of where you think we're going. And I think John gave us a great overview of what he sees. Is there anything that you would say is different or that you would add to what John said about where DEP is today and where we're going over the next kind of couple of years?
Well, I mean, look, we've kind of said it a couple of times that we can pivot and we can be a whiteboard all at the same time with the four of us sitting here.
We have lots of whiteboards in our office.
John really likes whiteboards.
John likes whiteboards.
Yeah. But look, I think that what we've also seen, one of the reasons why we're here is because the oilfield service and the greater energy, industry is changing. There's a lot of people that were in the industry that are no longer in the industry. We know that the industry needs support and needs people talking about it because it's obviously not going away. We think that there's going to be some sort of kind of cycle here in the next, who knows, is it 6 months, a year, 2 years, where it comes, and we want to be here for it. And that's, I don't know if that really answers the question other than like we're going to be in the middle of all of this kind of stuff, whether it's writing more research, having more events, doing other things for people in the industry. We want to be able to provide that because we think a lot of the traditional providers of that are going to be gone.
Yeah.
I like it. How about you, Bob?
As I was listening to Bill talk, I was just kind of thinking about and reading this little thing about what do you want the podcast to accomplish. And I think the main thing is that we don't have the horsepower right now to go out and meet with all the investors that we used to meet with when we were at Simmons. We used to be on the road, 2 or 3 times a month, traveling all over the country, talking to the biggest investors on the planet, frankly, and spreading the message of what we were saying. And due to we could, I guess, still do that if that was our core business model, but I don't think that's really our core business model anymore. But we're still getting really good stuff that we would want our clients to know, and we want people to know because it's interesting, and John's interesting to talk to and listen to. And I think the connections that we are going to make and are making are worthy of magnification and people hearing about. And I think that that's what this podcast can do is kind of I don't know. Actually, Josh used the term earlier, but coloring in the lines of what John writes in his weekly notes.
The letters.
Telling more anecdotes about what he's seeing and who he visited with and kind of the story behind the story, I guess.
Well, and I think the one thing that gets me excited is we've never done a podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, I think 10 years ago, if we would have been sitting around the table at Simmons and we said, hey, guys, we want to do a podcast, they would have laughed us out of the room. And kudos to Josh Lowry and his team because I think he has definitely brought a vision to Daniel Energy that I don't think I really saw. I don't think any of us saw.
Frankly, I didn't want to do it, but they forced us into it because Josh is such a good guy.
But Josh has...
He promised free tequila, which
the bottles are empty.
We love Aaron Marquez, too. I mean, we always give a shout-out to our Flecha Azul Tequila podcast studio supporter.
With all empty bottles.
All empty bottles. We didn't drink them. We're having Diet Coke today. But no, I mean, I think the vision here is unbelievable because I do think we can, number one, educate the industry as we do these podcasts, and some of this is going to be a rehash from every.
Sure.
By the way, our plan is to do this every 2 weeks or so, and I think the vision here really is to educate the industry, the investors, some of the folks that may just want to figure out what do these guys at Daniel Energy Partners really do. So educate folks about the industry, what we think is really going on, and talk,
right.
And then the other part of the podcast that I think will be really interesting is I think we're going to bring on some really good guests over the years because I think the industry likes to support us not only by coming to our events, but I think we have great relationships with people, and I think they like talking to us, and they know who we are. We're genuine folks, and I think that speaks well of our team, and I think the industry executives out there, and there's some folks that are not necessarily industry executives that I think we're going to have on our show that it's really going to be interesting over the next kind of couple of years. So I'm excited about the podcast. I'm excited about the events. If you haven't seen, get ready because the Permian Basin Barbecue website is about to get launched.
Yep.
And that is going to be a special event.
Why don't we do, hey, Sean, tell us your email all the way around so that people know how to reach out.
Well, mine's pretty simple. It's Sean@danielep.com.
Right. And I'm JD@danielep.com.
Bob at danielep.com.
And I'm Bill at danielep.com. So you can also, you can go to our website, which is danielep.com, which is very easy. We're on LinkedIn. John's on LinkedIn all the time.
Well, and our research is posted on the website, but it's delayed. So
Right,
if you're an institutional investor and you want real-time information, and by the way, we don't publish. That's
Right.
the other thing I love
Yeah.
about this job. We don't publish something every day just to try to be relevant.
That's right.
We publish once a week, and
Right.
if we see something in the news that's important, I think we will absolutely write on it, or we'll talk about it in some shape or form of communication. But we are not writing something every day just to try to be relevant. We, we publish on Sunday nights for the kind of company folks, Monday mornings for the institutional investors.
Right. So I think there's a lot of firms that do morning notes, and that's great. But what you hear from a lot of companies is, man, I just got 10 morning notes. I don't need to read the same thing 10
Yep.
times. And so I don't see the value in us doing that daily. And I'm lazy. I
also
don't want
not
to do it
fun.
daily. It's not fun.
Yep.
And
We want to have fun.
And so, look, the reason we did Sunday night is, a lot of people who are our clients or executives, I mean, Sunday night, they're bored at their house. Right? They tell me this. They're like, just finished dinner with the family, and I get your note. Like, it gives me something to read.
Perfect.
I'm like, great.
You probably shouldn't reveal the secret sauce.
The
on
secret
the
sauce.
reason why you did that.
But
Well, it's gone now.
and for me, I enjoyed writing. So Sundays, I go to church, and I come home, and I spend the next 5 hours sitting in my house writing and putting out the note. But it's an Outlook email right now, and the headlines go on our website, but the full note is not there.
Yeah. It's
That's
like
true.
a
There is
quarter
some-
of it.
That's
It's like a
true.
quarter
For
of
you
it.
Yeah, I
guys
mean,
out
look,
there that
we-
think you're going to get it for free, you don't
Yeah.
get it.
No, we do that. I mean, our marketing team is pretty savvy. I just put the title and make sure it's catchy, and we try to do that occasionally. But it's an Outlook email, and that's what we'll do. And I should note that we will be expanding our staff here probably within the next month or two. We intend to bring on another research person to help out.
Oh,
I haven't told you that yet, Bob. But we'll be doing that.
most interesting.
And so, because look, what happens is we can't be everywhere all the time. And, I am not going to pretend to be an expert in every vertical within OFS. There's no way. There's too many people to talk to.
Yep.
And so we're talking to a gentleman right now who is within the sand industry, very bright guy. But I would love for him to come on and be sort of the sand and OCTG compression, just several areas that I don't spend enough time on, but it's a big universe, and
Yep.
people care about it.
Yep.
And it matters to the E&P clients that are subscribers, and it matters to the industry. And they should be every bit involved with what we're doing as all the other companies. And so, that'll be coming down the pipeline. But, that's it.
I think we're also supposed to talk about the website for the Permian.
It's not live yet, but it'll be on our events page, and then you can click on the Permian Barbecue.
Right.
The link will be there. I just don't know what
That's
the
danielep.com in case
Right.
y'all didn't
Yeah.
get that.
At the barbecue, look, we'll have the 54 teams cooking, but there will also be opportunities for equipment to be on display.
Yep.
I've already had one, leading pump OEM say, "I want space. I want to be there." That's great. We love them. We'll have within the where the venue will be, Rolling Sevens Ranch, will be a number of booths for people that want to have equipment displays, or just like not necessarily equipment per se, but just anything that they do,
Anything
the product
that
or
they-
service
yeah.
that's available. And then we'll have we're looking to get a kick-ass band, and so we think
You know what? I want all of the people out there that subscribe to Daniel Energy Partners, send us your vote, or send us a couple of names that you want us to try to get as a band. Don't send George Strait or Carrie Underwood or what's your other favorite
Well,
one?
no, but I mean, like if someone wants to write the check for $1 million for Carrie Underwood, then we will.
We'll take it?
Well, yeah,
do
we'll
it.
make that happen.
Okay.
I'm not going to ignore it.
With that, unless you guys have anything else, I think we'll wrap this session up as our first Daniel Energy Partners podcast. We thank you. Thanks for coming in. Thank you, Josh Lowry and team for
John, I think you're supposed to clap now.
for doing the podcast for us, and we're signing off.
Well,
Peace.
yeah, and be gentle on our comments.
Be gentle.
Yeah.